Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk about India's economic landscape, exploring the current status and future potential of a rapidly growing economy. I chose this topic because the US President Donald Trump made a famous statement recently about Indian economy is a dead economy. I became a bit curious and went into IMF database and World Bank database and retrieved few data to fact check the same. First, let's start with India's GDP, which is $4.1 trillion and we are growing at the rate of 6.4 percentage while the world GDP is growing at the rate of 2.8 percentage. When you check for the top two countries, US and China, which is 3.1 percentage of growth rate and 4.8 percentage of growth rate, where we are staying on top of these two countries when it comes to growth rate. And if you see GDP per capita income, China and India China and US is way too higher than India. India's per capita income is $2,878, where India has to focus on by increasing the living standards of Indian people. That will raise the GDP per capita income. When it comes to inflation and unemployment rates, India's inflation is 4.2, which is moderate. Um, Moderate inflation rate is healthy. If you see unemployment rate, it's 4.9 percentage. And according to Phillips curve, inflation and unemployment rate goes by hand in hand. And if you see China and US, it's 5.1 and 4.1 unemployment rate. So inflation has its drawbacks as well as advantages. Advantages of inflation: if we maintain moderate inflation rate, that gives us economic growth indicator to the world arena, and it encourages spending and reduces debt burden, supports employment. The negative impact, if the inflation is high, that erodes purchasing power because the goods and services cost would be high, and that discourages saving because people wouldn't have money to spend and creates business uncertainty. Of course, it will when there is an inflation rate. Yeah. Let's talk about fiscal budget of 2025 and 2026. The very important thing is on this budget we have to focus on the capital expenditure that we made for the budget 25 and 26. Let's see, the total receipts is 34.9 lakh crore and total expenditure is 50.6 lakh crore. That let us borrow 14.8 lakh crore, which is almost 33 percentage of total GDP. Sorry, total budget. So how India raises money? So India did not go to IMF this time. India did not go to World Bank, but India sold its securities and bonds to domestic banks and mutual fund companies, insurance companies, and it also borrowed some money from RBI to compensate the deficit of 2025 budget. After borrowings, India's debt to GDP ratio becomes 80.3 percentage of overall GDP, which is $4.19 trillion, which is lower than US and China, which is 122 percentage of US GDP is US debt to GDP ratio, which is $36 trillion, and China's is close to 100 percentage of their GDP, where we are doing better than top two countries in the world economy. Foreign direct investment and balance of payments. In this, the current account deficit is 3.9 billion as per 2025, which is 0.9 percentage of our GDP. But we have $698 billion as forex reserves, which is maintained by RBI. This clearly indicates that we are able to manage the deficit and handle the balance of payments, which increases our credit rating in the world economy, and that attracts foreign direct investments, and that boosts our economy to another level. So we have good forex reserves to maintain the balance of payments. As I already spoke about capital formation, the capital expenditure that we decided to make on 2025 budget is 11.12 lakh crore, which is 33 percentage of our budget. Whereas China focuses on 40%, spends 40 percentage of their budget in capital formation, and US 21 percentage on capital formation. I think we are doing a little better here, but we have to focus more on capital formation because that boosts our production by investing in machineries and technology and infrastructure, and improves productivity by bringing in modern equipment and digital tools, creates employment, attracts FDI as well because of the stability in the economy. According to McKinsey's theory, they state that India has to focus on 18 arenas if they do well and good job in these 18 arenas. By 2040, India will contribute 8% to the world GDP. So 9 arenas from national arenas and another 9 arenas are global arenas where we have to focus to stabilize our standards, to grow our economy to another level. So by looking at this, if you see on 2008, we were contributing 1.9 percentage of global GDP and we were 3.4 percentage of global GDP. If we follow the 18 arenas, if we invest and focus on capital expenditure and focus on maintaining the inflation rate in a moderate way and maintain the unemployment in a moderate rate, then by 2040 we will be contributing 8 to 10 percentage of global GDP, which is 30 percentage of India's incremental GDP by 2040. After checking all this data, we are inching towards third largest economy soon. That gives the US president statement saying that India's economy is a dead economy is a completely bogus statement. In fact, we have to thank Donald Trump for putting this trade war so that our Indian government focused on several reforms. One of the reforms are the 56th amendment of GST, which brought all the sectors under 5% and 18% and eliminating 12% and 28% of distortion, and that benefits lots of MSME sectors and FMCG sectors and the consumers of India. We are in a good shape and we are growing and we are rapidly growing. Thank you.